All right, hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. It's going to be a little bit different show because we're not doing it live per se, pre-recording it because of the Christmas holiday. So I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, and we'll probably do something before the New Year. I don't remember if that's on a Tuesday or not, but I'll probably just pre-record something after the Christmas holiday again too. Normally we go through some pre-show stuff and we kind of talk about it. It's been cold, I'll tell you that. So I haven't really been working out as much. Do you have anything you want to talk about before we get into the football topics?
No, I'm ready. Let's do it.
The big one, and I honestly, it's going to be, I'm going to talk about, I'll probably go off on a tangent here about the TV schedule, but Russell Wilson finally choked, and I'm wondering if it's his downfall. He's like fumbling, throwing interceptions, and I've been waiting for this to happen because you bring him in and he starts to fade down the stretch, and that's not what the Steelers need. But in all honesty, I didn't even get to watch a bit of the game because of the holiday stuff and doing like just random shopping and other events that are going on. And I felt the same way. We're going to talk about the college football playoff, but I feel like the NFL and college football fighting over this weekend is just an extreme oversight. I don't know what the ratings are going to be for the weekend. I honestly didn't even know. I was eliminated from fantasy playoffs a while ago, right? So I wasn't even aware that there was a Texans played like at noon on Saturday. I got an alert and like, hey, in your consolation game, Nico Collins scored a touchdown or something, and I thought, wow, I had no idea this game was on. Like everything on ESPN was kind of pointed towards the college football playoffs, and then the Steelers, same thing. I didn't realize that it was on Saturday night. And it's like, why are they going up against it? And I remember talking about it. Was it over the summer when the NCAA tried to like work with the NFL to see if they could move their games? And my initial thought is, I don't know why the NCAA picked this weekend. If I'm being honest, I know because it was finals week. Is that why? That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense as I was watching the games, because they have but didn't the volleyball just have a tournament? Like I think Penn State just won a national championship. I think I saw that on the ESPN ticker. So like, did they not have any playoff games during final weeks? Like I don't understand why it would only affect football, because you have the schedule and giving them 2 weeks off, right? This is where if you're giving the conference champ the benefit of the bye week, I think the other play-in games, like, heck, just do like a bigger tournament then. Like everyone's talking about, well, every game this week was blowouts. Yeah, because it was a layoff and the home teams won, and the home teams are all the higher seeds, so they're the better teams. It's pretty easy to follow, right? Teams that won their conference, they're not sitting here playing the first week of games, other than Clemson on the road at Texas. And that was the most competitive one. But the other two, SMU and Indiana, were both directly non-competitive because of quarterback play. I'm not saying the quarterbacks stunk. I'm not saying that by any means. It was clear that they were rusty. 2 weeks off, whatever it ended up being for them. I think SMU played in the championship game. Oh, Penn State did too. Indiana did not. So they've had the full 2 weeks off? I don't see how that benefits anybody. Notre Dame would have had the 2 weeks off too, but they're at home. I think at home, you can play things a little bit different because you're used to throwing with the same, backdrop and stuff like that. It's freezing cold, high pressure. Same reason I'm saying Russell Wilson's starting to choke, dude. High pressure situations late in the season. It's time for him to fall apart. I know I've been everywhere at the start of the show.
Yeah, but you know, the whole Russell Wilson choking thing, like I don't know that that's it. He doesn't have the number one man to throw to again. I really do think that it's a major dynamic.
He's just let me down to fantasy so many times. I'm going to keep bringing up how he chokes. I'm going to speak it into existence. Right? I'm probably going to do a reverse jinx, right? And he'll have a great Super Bowl run where he's the MVP. That's what happened with Ohio State. I did everything I could to jinx them. Talk about how great they were, how they're going to kill Tennessee. My brother's a Tennessee fan. I texted him immediately when Ohio State started winning to like try to reverse course. Because I'm like, anyone that talks trash when the game first starts, that never ends well, right? So you know you're not going to try to do that. And it didn't even work. Ohio State killed Tennessee. So now we'll see if Russell Wilson can avoid the late season meltdown. They're in the playoffs though, right? I guess not 100%. It didn't have a clinch by them, but now I'm thinking that they are. I'm going to have to bring this up and take a look. Because at one point, the Chargers, I thought mathematically would have been the only team that could have been jumped. But then they won. And so I thought that Steelers clinched, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, they did clinch now. The Bengals are the only... So yeah, last time I looked, all the teams were still like in there. The Steelers right now are still in front of the AFC North due to tiebreakers. But what, 2 games left? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so it'll be now. This is where they typically crap the bed.
What's the Chiefs? That's a bad draw. Next, because Chiefs are fighting for the number 1 seed, or did they already clinch that though? No, they clinched the division. They're up there with the Bills at 2 games. So in theory, if the Bills lose, then the Chiefs would have it. If the Chiefs beat the Steelers, basically they clinch the number 1 seed. Because Bills beat them head to head, and I think that's a tiebreaker first. Because it wouldn't be, they only played once. So Chiefs have to beat the Steelers to get the number 1 seed. And then the Steelers then play the Bengals, who could be fighting for their playoff lives. So I could very easily see them go 10-7. But they're clinched in. The Chargers are the ones that aren't. They're 2 games? Them and Denver are tied 2 games ahead of, maybe 2 games ahead of Indianapolis, Miami, and the Bengals. And that's what we'll see. Yeah, it is 2 games ahead. So, not too bad. I'm surprised Denver's making the playoffs, if I'm being honest. They get rid of Russell Wilson, and then they're right there. You would have to be a massive choke at this point to not get in, as I jinx both them and the Chargers. Because it's the top 7. They both have a 2-game lead. They already played each other, so they're not going to do that again. The Chargers got the Patriots and then the Raiders, which they should at least beat one of those bottom feeders. They're fighting for the number 1 pick, although it's going to be the Giants have the lead on that right now. And then Denver, of course, is going to have they have the Bengals and the Chiefs. So if one team gets jumped, it would be the Broncos. The Broncos and the Steelers have the same ending 2 teams, which is interesting, just in reverse order. So if you're a Broncos fan and you don't beat the Bengals this week, and the Steelers beat the Chiefs, you better look out because they're fighting for that number 1 seed. They're going to want the bye, I would think. With Mahomes being kind of banged up, do I believe that he's hurt? I don't know. Right? He's always hurt now. The Niners got eliminated on the other side. The Cardinals got eliminated. Dallas is eliminated. So we're seeing a lot of other teams get eliminated. And then the same picture in the NFC, except like Green Bay and Washington are both right there with like a 2-game lead for the wild cards. But the Falcons and the Seahawks have a better chance of actually getting in the playoffs by winning the division. They're 2 games behind the Packers and Washington, but they're only 1 game out, or a half game if Tampa Bay's playing right now as we record this. Atlanta's a half game behind. And they benched Kirk Cousins for Penix. What do you think of that move?
I mean, it's one of the the biggest moves that you can make in sports to have that change. So I mean, if you're looking for a jolt to your roster, that's definitely something that'll do it. Um, I think the hard thing is if you're not, don't have the supporting cast around, it can really you're looking at setting the development of your program back years, if not decades. Um, the one that really stands out to me is the way the Houston Texans drafted David Carr and then proceeded to not have any running game, any offensive linemen, and just let him get shell shocked for his entire career. Getting hit 150 times a season. Not ideal by any stretch.
That one's close to me though, because like you're in the playoff hunt, right? I mean, I guess it's different. What did I say? Close to me. Tell them have the exhaustion from the holidays. Like I don't understand teams that are going to be, hey, we're really fighting for the playoff chance. We signed this great like deal for Kirk Cousins. Let's ruin our other QB, right? Like unless they really think that he's ready, and not even just ready, playoff ready. He has to provide a spark for them to really win these games and get into the playoffs. And yeah, it's one thing to beat up on the Giants. They also play Carolina. Washington, their next game is for the division, basically. They have to be, I could see them winning out. And of course, they need Tampa Bay to lose here to get pulled into a tie, because that's the big deciding factor. Because Tampa Bay plays Carolina, I would doubt that as a win, and the Saints. So they're hoping for, and I don't know what the tiebreaker is, but Tampa Bay has the easier schedule. Throwing Penix into a race, like maybe he'll get them on a run. It'll be interesting to see because like Detroit has so many injuries. They're in charge right now for the bye. They need it. And so battling for that last playoff spot, it's not even going to matter. So this is the same thing that the NCAA playoffs complained about, right? Because in the NFL, I think if you win the division, you automatically get the higher seed. So you're going to have the Eagles, the number 2 seed. They're going to get stuck playing either Green Bay or Washington. Meanwhile, the Vikings, which would be like the 5 seed, they're going to have the easier game playing against maybe Tampa Bay or even a rookie quarterback with Atlanta right now, the way things are shaking out. So it's not a one size fits all. You can't say, well, they need to fix the seeding for the college football playoffs to avoid these blowouts. It's like the NFL has the same problem. You either reward the regular season and the division title, because you can't say, hey, well, the NFC North is the best division, so the Vikings deserve that easier game. You can't say that. I mean, that's how it kind of works out because Detroit's so good. The Vikings are right there. The Vikings are kind of tied with them. So it could be an easy flip where Philly might not even get the bye. The Vikings might get the bye. But let's say someone else hops in there. Like there's no saying that the first wild card, whatever, is going to have the best seed. Like it's going to depend. Same with the NCAA. You can move teams around, change conference, bring back the BCS. How many times did Ohio State get the BCS and then get killed by an SEC team? Right?
Yeah.
A handful of them. And that's why the Big Ten has that perception. That's why it's insane to me whenever I see the Big Ten celebrating Ohio State's win all over social media. Not even mentioning Penn State's win. Right? Oh, yeah, they killed Tennessee, but okay. Kind of weird. Honestly, I went back and did a look. Penn State's volleyball had more success posts, and I know they won the national championship, but it was still less than Ohio State's congratulations post from Big Ten sources. Like, I'm talking about like the Big Ten network on Twitter and like other Big Ten official like channels. more congratulation posts about Ohio State winning over Tennessee than Penn State's volleyball team or Penn State's football team either. You would think that it would be equal, right? So it's still very clear that they think Ohio State is the best chance for them to win the national championship. And they've been riding that horse for 20 years now. That's why it's funny to me when they choke or like Florida kills them or like they get boat raced by someone else, you know, Clemson. All right. Like give you don't elevate the conference. That's the one thing that the SEC kind of doesn't do. Like they're kind of complaining now that Bama didn't get in. But if you notice, they also, like their commissioner is always throwing in like Ole Miss and South Carolina also deserved it. We had 3 teams. It wasn't like he's just pointing one out. Most people know that he means Alabama deserved a chance. But Alabama got killed by Oklahoma. Oklahoma wasn't that good. Ohio State would have killed them too. Or what would the seeding?
Would they have though?
Would they have? I don't know.
Would they have? We don't know. Like that's where this is the whole kit and caboodle of my frustration with this process, because everyone wants to think that, oh, if you would have put Alabama in, that it's so much better. If you would have put Ole Miss in, it would have been so much better. If you would have put, name whatever team, the justification for it, that it would have been better. Like, and I'll take some of the conference champion, like SMU earned their way in, but would that matchup in hindsight, it looked competitive, but do you think Army would have given them a more competitive game playing in the cold weather in Happy Valley compared to, what they're accustomed to in Dallas? I think it could have played a factor. I mean, also SMU not throwing more touchdown passes to Penn State than Penn State did might have helped too. Like there's certain stuff that you just don't have any control over. And I hate that they're trying to make this out to be, oh, if we had more schools from the SEC or we had more schools from the Big Ten, it could have prevented this. Bullshit. Because if bowl season has told us anything over the years, anybody can lose at any point. There are so many different factors that go into it: the amount of time in between games, the amount of preparation work, the early transfer portal at this point. You look at Georgia going into next week and they don't have their starting quarterback. Should that have been a disqualifying factor? Because you can't win in the playoffs if you lose your starting quarterback. We learned that last year. So, there's all these different things in place. I think, to me, what I would rather see is, number one, base it off of the wins in your conference. If you can't win your conference, that's your play-in to the big tournament. You can argue, I look at it from the state level, like from high school. If we want to win a state championship, we have to go through District 6. And to me, District 6 is one of the most competitive districts in Pennsylvania. So once we clear our districts, I feel like it's an easier path in most years. There's outliers, but for the most part, if you can clear District 6 because of the private schools that we have, you stand a really good chance of making a deep run, if not a chance to win it all. And I feel like they're trying to prevent some of these blowout games from happening. So you're looking at it like Penn State blows SMU out, and it's like, you can't control that. Like, they won their conference championship. They deserve to be there. Now, is it an unfortunate event that they get blown out? Yeah. I mean, everybody wants a close game, the high scoring matchups, but that, unless you're scripting it and you're forcing it to be that way, and then it no longer becomes sports, it just becomes like WWE. Like, you're going to have games for the good games and the comebacks. You're going to have a couple turd sandwiches. It goes with the territory. I think, like, when you try to micromanage it and you try to leverage yourself out of it, that's where it's going to get so just watered down or diluted, because you're just going to say they have to come from this conference. And then, even though you already have, like, using Alabama, they have 3 losses in conference or 4 losses in conference. And it's like you're still making this argument that, oh, they could still win the national championship. Bullshit. They couldn't win their conference. They weren't even one of the top 2 in their own conference, let alone in the nation. And that's a slap in the face to every other school that there is, because then you're creating the haves and have-nots.
So, just add in there, SMU didn't win the conference, just to remind you, but they did go undefeated in the ACC, so they 100% deserve to be there. Because you can't, right now, the way it's set up, you can't eliminate a team for losing the conference championship if they're the favorite, right?
Right, but I'm saying like they're top 2 within their conference. Like, take the top 2 from any conference. I don't think there's a really hard stance to say that they're not deserving. Like, because one of the things that I was hearing was the strength of schedule. And to a certain extent, do I think strength of schedule matters? Yes. However, the same people that are saying, well, Indiana hasn't played any ranked wins or any ranked opponents, was the same for Texas. Like, their schedule wasn't exactly a bull roses either.
Even Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. That's why, to me, the one thing that I think immediately, before I get into other hypotheticals, I wish the bowl committee would have moved teams around so that we wouldn't have to see Oregon and Ohio State play next round.
And that's one of the things that I thought was shifting the brackets the way that they did. It's like the same schedule issues happen, that you can still manage to lose games early in the season, and it's not a factor. And it never comes back to bite you like an end of season. Like, I feel like there's teams right now, and I'll use SMU, that you lose your conference championship, and then there was the ACC had to go to bat and really push hard to say they were deserving of a spot. Like, they almost lost out on a possible playoffs like opportunity because they lost their conference championship game. And to me, that's such bullshit. Because how do you say one of the 2 best teams in their conference isn't worthy, but a team that's 4 or 5 from another, oh yeah, that's definitely a shoo-in. Like, get out of here.
That's where, like, Ohio State is, because people don't understand. I keep saying, Ohio State should be ranked higher. It's like, why? They didn't play from the Big Ten championship game. Their last game was losing to 7-5 Michigan. And then there were banners flying during the game. I don't know if you saw it, where it was like, extend Ryan Day. Someone hired a plane to fly around with a banner that said extend Ryan Day before the game. And I just wonder, like, people look at it, they forget that Penn State would have been the higher seed if, like, I don't understand how they're going to fix it. Cause, like, you either have to get rid of conference championship games, or if you're trying to limit it and keep it smaller pool, then honestly, this opening round would have included only the losers, and teams like Ohio State and what other ones were in there that didn't get in. Tennessee wasn't in their championship game. Like, they wouldn't have had a chance. Like, it would have been, if they wanted to go back to having like a smaller pool with like only 12 and get rid of other teams that don't deserve it, then you would have had like maybe the conference championship losers of the Big Four, SMU, Texas, Penn State, and whatever other champ would have been in there, Iowa State or something, play like the other conference champs, like Army, like you brought up. Because to me, I don't think a team needs a bye. If they're going to keep the format, I think they should just expand it to 16 or 24, whatever they want to do. And if you want to give a team a bye, great, but reward them. Like, Penn State losing in the Big Ten championship, in my theory, they should just play the next week. Like, you had a chance to get a bye or to skip around, you lost it. So Oregon would have got the skip, and then they would be playing this weekend at home. Like, Oregon doesn't get a home game, and they have to play Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, which is kind of like a home game for them, hopefully. Otherwise, like, what's the difference in that? Now they have to play Ohio State in a neutral site game, where Ohio State didn't even play in the conference championship. They got, like, basically a bye into this round against a Tennessee team that was not prepared and that had no defensive coaching at all. that it was almost maddening watching the game. Like, did they not watch the Michigan tape? Even the Penn State tape, they showed how to beat Ohio State. Penn State slowed them down, and Penn State could have beat them if they would have been able to score from the 5-yard line, but their offense is awful. So it's like SMU, same thing. Hey, guys, we watch Penn State. Their offense is just about as Michigan's as their, but what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to throw a couple pick sixes. Oh, okay. Let the defense be the offense for them? Yeah. Oh, great. Now the game's over. Good one. Like, SMU was driving on Penn State. That game was competitive. If he doesn't throw the interceptions, what was there, 3 of them? 2 of them went for touchdowns. Take those 2 touchdowns out, and the score is like, what, a more respectable, would have been 21-10 or something like that. He threw the other interception in the end zone.
Yeah.
And when he was running, he could have just ran for the first down for that one. Was there 4?
Well,
I don't even know how many there were. I can't remember them all.
Well, it was funny. The one.
Or no, that was an incomplete. He had another incomplete on 4th down because he was rolling out to the sticks, right?
Yep.
And he tried to throw it back across his body to a guy that was open. But at that point, buddy, you're already throwing pick sixes. What are you doing? Just take the first down. He was definitely shook. But I don't blame the kid, right? SMU doesn't play in stadiums like that.
But I was laughing because on the one interception, they turned the ball over, and it was like, what are you doing? And then Penn State went for it on 4th down and had an issue. Like, they went for it on that quarterback sneak.
Yeah.
And didn't get it. So they turned the ball over, like, inside, like, their score territory. And, like, 2 plays were down inside the goal line. Was like, I just got done saying, if I'm Rhett Lashley, I'm just saying, we're going to call pass plays, but you're going to scramble. Like, you do not throw the ball. We're only running the ball the rest of this game. Like, with having that many interceptions, it was like, you have to do something to move the ball. Like, they were able to run it well, but it was like every time they tried to mix it up and throw a pass, he just threw it right to Penn State. It was like, sometimes quarterbacks have that where they just get tunnel vision, and there's nothing you can do with it. And it was no sooner did I get it out of my mouth, and they threw the second pick six. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I was so just shocked that people were talking trash on SMU, and I thought, is it really their fault? Because he had a decent time moving the ball. It just interception, like, and they were going for touchdowns. So they didn't even have a chance to really do anything. And same with Indiana. Their guys are open. Quarterback had the yips, overthrowing them. And you could tell Signetti, he's kind of like a jerk. So I don't want him to win. But you would think that just wanting Notre Dame to lose, come on, do something, buddy. You signed that big contract. Never have your coach sign a huge contract before the playoffs. You always lose. That's a surefire way to get your team to choke, is to start contract negotiations before the playoffs. I don't understand it. And now we have a DEFCON chance of an Ohio State Notre Dame national championship, which would be awful for everybody. I don't think anyone wants that. Like a lame Georgia team going in there. Ohio State gets a rematch. Then they could play Texas, that's having their own quarterback issues. Like Manning, dude, we know where his clutch gene comes from. He takes after Peyton with that fumble on the quarterback sneak or whatever the hell he was doing. What are you doing? Are you trying to give Clemson the ball back, buddy? They put you in, and that's what you do? That made me crack up so much. I couldn't even believe it. I thought that he slipped or something at first because I wasn't really watching it. And then I thought, of course, he just fumbled it right back. Didn't even have a chance on that 4th down conversion. And then Clemson, of course, botched it away anyway. But they just, I'm not sold. Everyone's saying oh, Texas is going to be favorites. That's what I keep hearing. Oh, now we got 2 games that aren't going to be competitive next round. Texas and Arizona State and Penn State and Boise State. It's why? These are now neutral site games. And yeah, the other teams had the time off, but it's not like Texas is world beaters. I know they killed Michigan early in the year. Quinn Ewers is hurt, and his confidence is shook because they keep putting in Manning, right? That's not a recipe for a national championship. I don't care who you are. I'm watching because I'm wondering, like, Quinn Ewers has already said, like, I don't know if he officially said it, but it's pretty much out there that after this year, he's transferring somewhere else. He doesn't want to go pro. He doesn't feel like he's developed for the NFL yet.
But wasn't that the route Michigan went with Henson and Brady? Where they were like spot playing both of them?
Yeah, it was back in the day. Well, the Henson thing was more of like, who knows? That was kind of just mismanagement, I think. But it kind of drove Tom Brady to be the greatest NFL quarterback of all time. That's what I'm wondering. Like, you bring in Arch, and everyone's like, they talk about it, the announcers, man. I know, I get it. They're fans of like Peyton Manning, or they're not even fans of Eli. Like, let's be real. They just like Peyton, the announcers, for whatever reason. And then they talk about him like he's their nephew. They're like, Arch Manning, so like fluid. Look at him out there. So strong. I love having him at family dinners. I'm like, what are you talking about? Let the kid play. We don't even know
so beefy.
Yeah. Look at that hair. Oh, I used to have hair like that. That's what I'm like. What are you talking about, guy? Just watch a game, bro. Watch a game. Like, why are you cheering for the back quarterback? And it's not even just like fans. It's announcers. I'll never understand it. It's going to cost Texas a national championship. If he was that great, Sarkisian wouldn't be rolling out an injured Quinn Ewers. Right? I mean, come on. Let's be real. How many other quarterbacks? Wasn't it like Saban like finally rolled out, was it 2 or whoever against Hurts? And then he like transferred. I think that's the situation that we're seeing right here. Manning, I mean, they're going to be in dire straits. I think Arizona State's going to come out and be ready to play. I don't know if they have the horses. But people writing that off as a blowout, maybe I'll be wrong. Sarkisian's still the coach. He almost bungled that game up. He could have buried Clemson. Did he? No, he didn't. I mean, on the other hand, then you watch Ohio State. They made sure, and then he put their backup in with like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter against Tennessee. A pure sign of disrespect. Because Tennessee bought a lot of tickets to their game. I've seen coaches, even like Hartline, he's not their offensive coordinator. Like, who are we joking? Like their recruiter, basically, is what he is there. He was talking trash to people on Twitter after the game. And it's like, buddy, that's why you're not getting a head coaching job anywhere. Schools don't want their head coach. Even like Lane Kiffin was talking trash about the other schools like SMU getting in over them. When Tennessee got their ass smacked, Tennessee was the worst beatdown of the night. That game was not competitive at all. It was almost like watching Ohio State take on Toledo. Like, I'm not even joking. That game was over, and I thought, this is what you're putting on at night in prime time? Upel looked in over his head. They kept singling out Jeremiah Smith. I am shocked that, am I the only one that thinks that Jeremiah Smith does offensive pass interference like almost every play? Bro, is he allowed to just shove people in the chest? Did you see that one touchdown catch? He just shoved the guy right out of the way and then just caught the ball and then talked trash on him after.
Yeah, he got away with it.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell? Because they were talking about how great he was in the Michigan game, and I thought, man, he had like 3 offensive pass interferences in a row, and that was his only touchdown of the game. And then they lost. Like, great performance, buddy. Losing to a team you were favored by 3 touchdowns over, but Michigan had the thing down. Dude zone, disguise coverages. Howard's not going to be able to read him. Throwing picks, doing whatever he's doing, concuss him. Like Michigan had him concussed during that game. That was clear. Tennessee didn't even hit him. And that's what made me laugh, because Herbstreit at the beginning of the game was talking about how Tennessee is the best defensive line other than maybe Michigan. And he mentioned Graham and Kenneth Grant. I'm like, buddy, they're both like going to be top NFL picks. Like, no. Tennessee's defensive line is nowhere near Michigan's defensive line that just won the national championship. It's the same guys from last year. What are you talking about, dude? And then, of course, I was proven right as Ohio State just ran all over them. Like that, I'm surprised at like the announcers. Like, do they watch the game? Do they just get their SEC talking points directly from ESPN? Like, I'm supposed to believe that Tennessee has a great defense. Their defense was ass. Indiana had a better defense. Like, that's not even a joke. Indiana slowed Ohio State down more. And they didn't get scored in the playoffs as much. So, insane. To fix the playoffs, I think they have to do something to the conference championship games. You can't keep having a conference championship game and then try to reward teams that win that and then take teams that are out of it. I still would like to see teams from every conference in. That way it can be a true national championship, not just like an invitational.
Yes. Because
they're already trying to, let's make the games better. They're blowouts. You know what would make it better? Is if I had more games to choose from. You could eat, and this is my thing. I told you this like months ago or years ago, that what they should do is just like the NCAA basketball tournament, you do the opening round and you make the games at least 2 at a time, right? One starts at 12, one starts at 12:30. The next one starts at 3:30. The next one starts at 4, right? Then you have 7:30 and 8 p.m. Friday night, same thing, 7:30, 8 p.m. Just like basketball. Whatever game is the most competitive is the one most people will watch. If they're fans of the team in the other game, like Ohio State blowing out Tennessee, Ohio State fans and Tennessee fans, well, Tennessee fans might not watch that because that was awful. But Ohio State fans would watch that. And so you're going to get the ratings no matter what, right? They said that the rumors were that ESPN had a deal with the NFL where they couldn't show football in the same on their networks during any NFL game, which is why the playoff games were on HBO Max or TNT. Which, if that's the case, like, what are you doing? And I'm not talking about ESPN. I'm saying NCAA. What the hell are you doing? Why are you entering in a deal with a network that can't show your games? Like, at that point, just put them on CBS or something. I'm sure CBS has the same language or whatever. So, yeah, they're going to end up where the basketball ones are. TNT or... Well, I didn't mind HBO Max. Like, that's an easy streaming thing. It's not that expensive and it's easy to cancel. So, if you wanted to watch, like, your team play, you could easily have that. Right? I think it's an add-on. Sometimes it's only like $6 or something if you have Hulu or whatever. But for that, whatever. Just figure it out. Put it in there. I just want to have more football games. Like, why am I watching? Like, why not give me a chance? Is Army going to get blown out that much more than Tennessee did? No, they're not. And it might be more competitive, but at least I would have an option, right? You're giving me 4 games at home in the biggest stadiums across the country, like Beaver Stadium, Ohio Stadium. Like, these are 2 of the biggest stadiums in the country. And they're putting beatdowns on. Yeah, no shit. Like, what am I also? Texas, one of the other biggest stadiums in the country, putting a beatdown on. The only one that was kind of small is Notre Dame, but still putting a beatdown on. Awesome. Like, why not? Like, that's what I don't understand. Why not give the other conference champs the home game? Reward them. Like, these other jabronis didn't win shit. Make Ohio State play at Army Stadium. Right? It might still be a blowout, but reward the teams then that win their conference. Otherwise it's a fake tournament. Like, I don't know.
And I think doing that is also going to give some credibility to the conference champions. That, you know, you want that balanced game, and you're saying that, you know, a Georgia or Alabama can go anywhere, beat anyone, any place. Well, then go to Army, and that would, to me, that almost evens out some of the game, because then you have the home field advantage that the underdog has on their side, that I think would make it a little bit more competitive.
I'll be honest. After this game, after the playoff games, I have no interest in any bowl games. None. I saw Florida was celebrating a bowl game, and I thought, bro, that's like a tree falling in the woods. No one hearing it. No one cares about Florida's bowl game win. No one. Like, what are you doing promoting that ESPN? Get that off my feed. So, they're hurting the whole product. That's why my fix would be conference championship games. The first round starts the following week. If you lose the conference championship game, you can get in at large and you play. They can even be predetermined, Matt, because that's the one thing I keep hearing. It's like, well, you don't know. Why can't they just have the old challenge where it's like the SEC, ACC challenge where the losers of those championship games play a play-in game the following week? Like, why not just have it predetermined? The champion of the MAC plays the champion of the AAC the following week every year, or have it rotate on a schedule so that you know who your team's going to play. Because then the Big Four conference championships, the highest ranked ones or whatever, they get a bye, so they wouldn't play in that opening weekend. They would automatically go to the second weekend, which would have been this past weekend. Because I would have did it early. Like, as soon as the Big Ten championship game's over, Penn State has to play the winner of the Big 12 or whatever, or the loser of the Big 12. So they would be playing Iowa State, and it would go to the higher seed. So like Penn State would get another home game. They know that they have a chance if they lose that they're going to do the home game. The Big Ten knows that there's only 4 chances. Actually, they would even know going into it. Because going into the Big Ten championship, you know Oregon and Penn State were going to be ranked ahead of the Big 12 champ. Right? So you know Oregon and Penn State can start selling tickets. That game is going to be there if they lose the Big Ten championship game. If they win, they get a home game the next weekend anyway. So you can just have the tickets go towards that or whatever. People buy into the playoff game. They get a home game no matter what. The Big 12 team gets a home game, whatever. Arizona State, they would get a home game. They'd get a bye and a home game for winning the Big 12 championship. And then I don't know what the bracket would look like, but there would be 9, 10 conferences right now. I don't think the Pac-12 counts. So I think there's only 9, unless there's a 10th that I'm forgetting. So you'd have 4 teams go in, then you would have 5 other teams. You'd have 1 at large. Maybe leave that for an independent. Notre Dame plays whatever, or it could just be another at large. Could be in Alabama or whatever. You tell them like, sorry guys, we're inviting Notre Dame this year. What are they going to lose to a team from the MAC? Yeah, they already did. I think Northern Illinois is in the MAC, right? I don't even know.
Yes, and they're not even one of the top teams of the MAC yet to boot. So I mean, like that's where you can hypothetically beat yourself back and forth. And here's the other thing to it is that you're so confident. That's why these Vegas lines are so crazy. That year in, year out, like if it were that simple, you just go, oh, we just go with the favorite and boom, 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 and you just rake in the money.
Yeah, and that's why people were bringing up Vegas. It makes me laugh because Vegas is just for gamblers. People lose money on Vegas all the time. That's why no one's rich. Like, you can't just pick. And that's why the home field advantage would be the one thing that is my sticking point, right? Because you have Notre Dame, which would be ranked higher than say like a 9-4 MAC team. In theory, Notre Dame should get the home game, and maybe that's what you do. I just don't know. Well, I guess you wouldn't. They're not playing in the conference championship. Notre Dame isn't, so they're kind of hurt, or they're kind of get the benefit where the other champ, if they have to match up in a second non-conference champ, I don't know how we could fix the independent thing, other than tell teams that they have to be in a conference. And then that would give us 10 conferences. So you would have 3 conference champs match up, 3 games of the other 6. So the top 4 conferences would get a bye. The other 6 would play each other. And then you would have the losers of the other conference play each other. If the Big Ten and the SEC want 4 teams in, then they should have to just play each other in another play-in round. Right? Why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not have, like I've been saying before, why not have the Big Ten have a championship showcase where Indiana would have had to play, I don't know, Iowa or someone they didn't play to get into the playoffs. And then they would play the SEC third place winner or whatever. At the same weekend that the conference championship game losers are playing the other losers, or they could even just play a lower conference champ, if we're being honest. Like if the Big Ten's so much better than the MAC, why not every year have the Big Ten loser, Penn State this year, play the MAC champion instead of playing the Big 12 champ? Then the Big 12 champ plays whatever conference is out there, Mountain West or something. The loser of that conference. Like who did Boise beat? I don't even know. There's an easy way for it to be done. And then that way you can still have the Cinderella story. Because a team, think about it, a team loses, and this also helps with the transfer portal. Because right now, like Penn State's guy, he lost the Big Ten championship. The portal didn't open for that first weekend. They would have had to play the MAC champ. What if they upset Penn State? Then the entire team enters the portal? Like, or maybe the team's already focused on trying to get into the portal and they're not focused on the MAC champ because they just lost a Big Ten championship game. Like there's a lot of extra things that could happen in that 1 week. Instead of having everyone laser focused on, hey, we get a home game, blah, blah, blah. Let's paste them. I mean, if Penn State blows through Boise State and like people are saying that the Oregon-Ohio State game might be the national championship game, I'll believe it when I see it, right? The Big Ten's not like pulling national champs left and right.
But, you know, if Penn State runs through Boise State, then so what? Like, it's not like you're dealing with two 500 teams that didn't, like, they were ranked. I don't understand why we're splitting hairs. They're ranked in the top 15-ish all the polls. So, like, they have a reasonable push to be in the playoff. Like, I think where you start to really split hairs is those top 4 seeds. And historically over the past, like, it went there is that weird evolution where it went from initially random games assigned because of the conference ties to the bowl games that you really didn't have a true 1 and 2, and it evolved towards your BCS where you had number 1 and number 2, and there was always, well, does number 3, is 3 better than 2, is 2 better than 1, where do they fit for 1 and 2? But I felt like it was a more reasonable draw for what that national championship game looked like. It got us closer. And I felt like as we evolved to the 4-team playoff, it was like we're still trying to inch there. But the thing with it is, like, for every opportunity where you have a TCU style blowout or Notre Dame getting, like, nobody ever brings up Notre Dame getting absolutely murdered by Alabama in the national championship. They deserved it. They deserved that ass whipping, and they deserve the right to be there. Like, as much as you don't want to watch a 4,700 point blowout in your national championship game, if those are the teams that make it and those are the teams that qualify for it, then so be it. Like, I think some of it has to come down to playing the games, and you can use whatever metrics you want, but at the end of the day, the games have to be played, and that's the part that's exciting. You know, I know that you want to try to manipulate it as best as you can to prevent teams, but that's what your conference slate does. Supposedly, you have those conference games so that the best representative of those conferences has an opportunity to play. And I don't know, going back to that strength of schedule, where I have an issue with it is it's going to be so front-loaded because the SEC, backed by ESPN, is going to want more higher ranked teams so that when they're pushing for their ESPN showcase games, they can say, here's 2 ranked teams. So they have a vested interest in trying to keep as many of those teams ranked higher to keep them there. Same with Fox and Big Ten. Like, their big noon games, you don't want it to be where it's 2 random unranked teams. Like, there's more selling point to it where you can say, hey, Ohio State and Michigan, they're both ranked. there's a lot of pull for potential national championship or conference championship playoff seeding. Like there there's more selling to it. There's more marketing to it. It's harder to market when it's like, here's two win teams trying to beat each other for last place in the conference.
That's why I look at it because people brought up the TCU thing, but like TCU beat Michigan. Michigan had an SMU type game. They threw 2 pick sixes, right? And they played the game. What, 9 out of 10 times? Maybe the result is the opposite, right? But was TCU overmatched? It didn't matter, right? People that year said like, well, the national championship game was the Ohio State Georgia game. Georgia was close to not even getting there. That's why they were so focused. They almost choked if Ohio State had a kicker, which in the transfer portal era, how do they not still have a kicker? Right? They put that guy out there for a 50-yarder in the wind, and I knew he wasn't going to make that. He has to be shot after, like his nerves have to just be shot after the Michigan game where he blew it. And then they said they had an open tryout. And he still won. I thought, who is he kicking against? Right? At practice. How bad's the other guy? But honestly, if they want to just fix it, and this will take them 10 years to do, they already have the format. Just do the FCS 24 game or 24 team, right? Put all the conference champs in, like I said. That takes up 9 or 10 of the slots. Then you have 14 open slots. If 8 of them are filled, or I guess 6 of them would be filled by whatever, the Big Ten and the SEC they want 4 teams in, then the other ones can get in there. Maybe 5 or 6 get filled up depending on the year. Notre Dame can get their slot. I just think that they could have the opening 2 rounds directly after the championship game, 8 games, right? Kind of similar to what the schedule would be like this year. So that means there would have been 8 games last week featuring a lot of those like other conference champs. Heck, they could just have it slotted. MAC champ, whatever champ, like the lowest seeded ones. Obviously, they wouldn't say the conference names. It would just be whatever the lowest 6 conference champs are in that opening round. That's who they play. And if they're higher ranked, then they get a bye. Because that's how this other one works. Because like they have some ranked teams getting a bye and other ones not. Right? But then if you get the bye, then you play this weekend. So there would still be another 8 games. And you put them on the same time slots, like I said. Start at Friday, 7:30 and 8 p.m., noon and 12:30, 3:30 and 4, and then 7:30 and 8. And you have at least 2 chances, because ESPN owns all the rights anyway. Put one game on ABC and the other one on ESPN. And you have 2 chances then of having a competitive game. Otherwise, I don't have a chance of seeing a competitive game like this last weekend. I'm going to go do other things like I did during the Texas and Clemson game. I came back and caught the end, and it was already over anyway. Like I knew that game was over before the Dabo and Sarkisian tried to give it away or whatever. So Penn State won, over. I went out and did some stuff, came back, saw a couple other fumbles and interceptions or whatever, and I thought, oh my God. It's like a nightmare game for that guy. Imagine watching that with scouts in the NFL. Unbelievable. But that's my thing. I'm honestly not against the playoff. I mean, Michigan wasn't in it. I would have liked to see competitive games. I think we will see competitive game next week. Or is it even next week? No, it's new. I guess it's like a week and a half, like we said. So we'll see. We'll probably have a show before those games are even happening. But it'll probably be an NFL type show then. But anything else you want to talk about this week?
I mean, the highs and lows, I really liked what I saw out of these playoff games. Like they're inching closer. It's not a perfect system, but I feel like they're getting there. And over time, I think eventually you'll see a more polished product as this evolves. But I think what they have to stop doing is they have to stop trying to play favorites. And it's like, oh, this team has to be in for no reason other than recency bias. They look at that Alabama team and, oh, well, they have to be a top seed because of whatever criteria, and it just that's what's going to create the blowouts when they use that justification. And I think that maybe that's a little bit more of what you're seeing with those early round games, is that as you're starting to say, well, is it this team? Is it this team? Well, this conference should definitely have more representation, and then they get their ass kicked.
Hey, we see that in the basketball tournament. That's why I said if they go to 24, I don't think anyone can complain. Right? If you're that far down the list that you're a bubble team, like no bubble team has ever won the national championship in basketball, I don't think. Like, what are you doing? You're doing there to go to Sweet 16? That's what I think the football one would be like. You might be able to pull an upset or two, and that's how you can get bigger brands to watch. Maybe the committee or whatever. Like the basketball one, I think just uses some type of formula now. Used to be like RPI. I don't know what the hell it is now, net or something. They just do the BCS and have it slanted like it used to be based on how many wins you have. Very easy system. Very easy. Because then the big teams are going to want to put the beat down on the smaller conferences to automatically make them 9-3, right? And then you have the other ones that are going to try to get in there with 10 wins. 9-10 wins, you'll have like an 8-win team. Hell, like, could you imagine, like, maybe Michigan gets in this year with that win over Ohio State?
What I think of
they're the 24th seed. Like, what would be the difference? Like, would it matter?
And that's the thing that I look at is, like, if you go in and you have a set criteria of what, like, there's not a game that you play where you're like, this is what the rules are, and then you change them like mid-flow, because that's kind of what they're doing with it. It's like, oh, you have to win your conference, and then you win your conference. Like, nope, you have to win and be healthy now if you're not in the SEC or Big Ten. Like, then we can justify it with Georgia, because Georgia just has so many superpowers on their team that they would definitely do it. That they're allowed to continue at the rate that they're going. Like, nonsense.
That's why, I mean, honestly, I wish a smaller team like SMU would have won. That would have went against everything, like, or helped your case. Like what you're saying is, hey, some of these smaller conference teams, they have to win. Like Boise State has to win for the health of college football, I think. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
If the Final Four end up being 2 Big Ten, because Big Ten's at least they're locked in with one, with Oregon and Ohio State winner. If Penn State wins, that's 2. You could have Texas and Georgia. It could be 2-2. And then what do you do? If you're a fan of any other conference, how can you not say that, well, we tried, right? The other conferences had a chance. They didn't get it done. ACC's done. I did see a report come out. Was it New York Times or whatever? They proudly listed Notre Dame as an ACC member. And I thought, what a joke. Who the hell wrote this article? Like, it had to have been like a women's basketball fan or something. Because, like, that's the only thing that, like, not even the men's basketball, I don't think they proudly say they're in the ACC. Right? Football, for sure. Hell no, they wouldn't have signed off on that. But honestly, would it be even better if it's 2 Big Ten and an SEC and an independent Notre Dame? Like, oh, great. What a great system. All the other, like, if you're a fan of college football, whatever happens, I know this, if Ohio State would beat Oregon, this would give me the worst case scenario where they could maybe win a national championship. You need Arizona State to win. You need Boise State to win. And I honestly, of all the Big Ten teams, I wouldn't mind seeing Penn State win a national championship, just because I think that would put another chink in the Ohio State armor. If the teams around them are winning national championships, how would that not put immense pressure on Ryan Day and that team? They're not going to fire him now after they killed Tennessee. Could you imagine? Like, but
They
then
could. They could.
if Penn State wins a national championship before Ryan Day does, Matt, the Columbus area would burn down.
It's not outside the realm of possibility, because get blown out next week. Get curb stomped by Oregon, and watch the same people will lose their gourd. And he'll be back on the hot, because they'll say, "Oh, the bad loss to Michigan, losing to a conference foe in the playoffs, not good enough."
Well, to be fair, they only lose to two teams, Oregon and Michigan. Last time they lost to Oregon, right, and Michigan, then they lose to Michigan, then they lose to Oregon again and Michigan. If they lose to Oregon again, then they have a 2-team problem, right? Is that enough to blow things up? That's why I said if Penn State, because bear with me, people are saying Texas has like the easiest path. Penn State has the easiest path. They played SMU, then they get Boise State. Nothing against Boise State. Penn State's built to stop the run. Boise State's entire offense is running. Then you have Notre Dame, which, yeah, they can out-talent Indiana. They can't out-talent Penn State. Like, let's be real here. I've seen Notre Dame teams very similar to this Notre Dame team come into the big house and get slammed 44-0 or whatever the hell that score was. Then they blamed it on the rain. They pulled in Ohio State. It was raining and cold. Penn State is built to stop that Notre Dame team. Then Penn State could be gifted 2 teams that rely on the run. And then guess what happens? Georgia loses their QB. Oh my God. Penn State's gifted 3 opponents potentially that go right into their hands. They play right into Penn State's defense. And then in the national championship game, anything can happen, right? So if all the teams that have, because it's about matchups, and the only downside is they have James Franklin as their coach. If I'm being honest, James Franklin, gonna do something dumb. So you have to beat your coach, but you have the advantage. I don't understand. Penn State fans, like they're still telling me like, oh, we're not very positive. Like we're waiting for things to blow up as they're killing SMU. Fans are like, I'm waiting for something bad to happen. And I get it.
Well, the bad things did happen. Like they had enough blunders that they could have lost the game. It was just SMU just decided, we're going to throw 97 touchdown passes to Penn State and erase the pick sixes, and that's a much more competitive game than what it ended up playing out to be. You know, I think they end up getting some scores on at least 2 of those.
I think, yeah, if SMU did anything and not turned the ball over, they would have had a chance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, but like I said, now you're looking at a huge issue for fans of other conferences where if there's not one upset next week, it's going to be the talking heads rolling. And what would be even funnier is if somehow for SEC fans, like what if there's a Big Ten national championship game and SEC is not even in the Final Four? Because you don't know. It could be Arizona State, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Penn State. And the national championship game is a Big Ten title rematch. Or just a rematch of Ohio State, Penn State. Like how low would the ratings be for that championship game? Because SEC fans would be pissed. Like they're not tuning in for that. Are you kidding me?
Well, that would be a. I think that's what the major networks are worried. They don't want that to be the issue.
I know they want an Oregon or Ohio State versus Georgia, or Notre Dame. Could you imagine Ohio State, Notre Dame national championship? Or I mean, I guess Oregon, Notre Dame probably wouldn't be as good. But that one bowl game when it was like Notre Dame, Ohio State, I'm pretty sure that one did pretty good ratings. And that's what they want. They want 2 national brands. Georgia's not really a national brand, but they've been winning enough, and they're the premier SEC team right now that they would get the ratings. But I don't know. That's all I have. We'll see on the speculation next week. I'll have some more hot topics. Otherwise, I don't have anything to talk about. You have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I did have some really good news. Florida State signed Deuce Robinson out of the portal, and this is really big news coming off of getting their quarterback. That Robinson was a 5-star that committed to USC was a legacy. So we're bringing them home. And it's nice to have a 6'5" receiver coming back. So I mean, I think when you're looking at some of this rebuild that Florida State's going through, I think like this is where the portal and everything else it plays a hand in it, because you look at those recruiting rankings of the blue chips, it's not going to show that ranking, but a 5-star former recruit comes in, like it doesn't offset on the roster of what that looks like.
I mean, Florida State needs to do something, bro. You want that 2014 playoff. They don't have the NIL like Miami.
Well, as of right now, we're not going to make a 100-team playoff. So,
could you imagine if the playoff did expand to 24 and Miami kept missing it still?
I'm dying that they spent as much money as they did to end up in the Pop-Tart Bowl. They didn't even end up getting into a better quality one.
I know. What the hell are they playing Alabama? What the hell?
They're playing for a toaster.
But yeah, all right. Well, thanks for listening. Like I said, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. And if there's anything you want us to hit on before the New Year's up, let me know, and we'll see you next week.